My father was the kind of man who remembered everyone's birthday. Not just family. Workers. The people he bought supplies from. The man who dropped off lumber every Thursday morning. He kept a small notebook in his shirt pocket. Names and dates, written in his neat handwriting. When he died, that notebook was still in his pocket. I kept it. I still have it today. The night we lost him, our house filled up with people. Neighbors. Church friends. Old work partners. Family members. Everyone cried. But no one cried louder than my Uncle Daniel. He sat next to my mother on the couch, holding both her hands, head down, body shaking. People kept walking past him and saying quietly, "Thank God, she is Daniel. At least she is family." I was 17 years old. I stood near the kitchen door and watched him. And I noticed something that no one else in that room seemed to see. Every time someone walked away from him, the crying stopped. The moment someone new came over, it started again. Like a switch. On, off, on, off. I told myself I was being unfair. That people cry in different ways. That I was just a teenager looking for somewhere to put my own pain. I kept telling myself that for a long time. But at the funeral the next day, something happened that I never forgot. Just for 1 second, when he thought no one was looking, my uncle smiled. Not a sad smile. Not a smile of relief. A happy one. Like someone who had just gotten very good news. I was the only one who saw it. And for 8 years, I never stopped thinking about it. My father's name was Robert Vega. He started his construction company when he was 24 years old. 1 truck. 2 workers. A bank loan he paid back in 18 months. By the time he died at 51, he had 40 workers, a great name in the debt at all. None. He was very proud of that. A man who owes nothing answers to nobody, he always said. He had life insurance. Land. Money saved. A company that was worth a lot. He also had a brother-in-law he trusted with everything. That was the only mistake he ever made. Daniel moved quickly after the funeral. Within 2 weeks, he was at our kitchen table every evening. Folders. Papers. A calm, soft voice. "This one needs your name, Maria." "Just a small thing, Maria." "The lawyers need this one too, Maria." My mother was not dumb. She was broken. Those are 2 very different things. She had loved my father for 26 years. She never once had to think about bank accounts or insurance papers or company rules. That had always been his job. Now he was gone. And Daniel was the only person there offering to help her through it. So she signed every single paper he put in front of her. I sat at that table sometimes and watched it happen. I was 17. I did not know what those papers meant. But I understood the look on Daniel's face every time she signed one. It was not love. It was not sadness. It was relief. "Stay strong," he would whisper to her whenever she cried. But his eyes said something completely different. The changes came slowly at first. Tools and machines from my father's company started disappearing one by one. Daniel said they were being sold to pay bills. A piece of land my father had owned for years was suddenly gone. Daniel said the taxes were too high. Contracts my father had kept for a long time were ended. Daniel said the customers had moved on. One morning I came downstairs and found my mother sitting at the kitchen table holding an envelope. "We have to sell the house," she said. She didn't look angry. She looked empty, like something inside her had been taken out. "Dad would never have let that happen," I said. She looked up at me. The saddest eyes I have ever seen. "Your father left more problems than any of us knew about," she said softly. Daniel had told her that. I sat down across from her and held her hands. "Mom, Dad hated owing money. You know that. He talked about it all the time." She held my hands tightly, but said nothing. I think part of her already knew something was wrong. But knowing something is wrong and being able to do something about it are 2 very different things when your heart is broken. We moved into a small apartment that spring. Daniel helped us carry our boxes upstairs. He drove a brand new truck. I noticed. At night, I heard my mother crying alone in the kitchen. She always waited until she thought I was sleeping. "I don't understand where everything went," she whispered one night. Daniel answered her in a gentle voice from across the table. Robert left more debt than anyone knew. I'm so sorry, Maria. I'm due. Can. I lay in my bed staring at the ceiling. My father hated debt. He had taught me that since I was old enough to understand what money was, something was very wrong, and I was going to find out what. I turned 18 that summer and walked into Daniel's office one Saturday morning without calling first. He was surprised to see me, smiled quickly to hide it. Lena, what a nice surprise. What brings you here? I want to see the company records, I said. Everything. From the very beginning. The smile stayed on his face, but something changed behind his eyes. That is a lot of paperwork for someone your age. I am not a child anymore. I am 18. My father built that company. I have every right to understand what happened to it. He leaned back in his chair and looked at me for a long time. You know what your problem is, Lena, he said finally. Tell me. You don't trust the people who love you. I trust people who show me the numbers, I said. He laughed, stood up, put his hand on my shoulder, and slowly walked me toward the door. When you're older, he said in a friendly voice, when you understand how business really works. The door closed behind me. I stood in the hallway. My heart was beating fast. My face felt warm, but my mind was the clearest it had ever been. I took out my phone on the walk home and searched for finance courses. That same evening, I changed my university choice. From studying literature to studying finance and accounting. I told everyone it was a smart, practical choice. It was not practical. It was personal. I have to tell you about the night I almost ruined everything. It was my second year at university. My mother had just been told she had cancer. I drove home that Friday evening and found Daniel already at the apartment, sitting next to her, holding her hand, looking very worried. The treatments are going to cost a lot, he was telling her, but we'll figure it out together. He looked up when I walked in. Lena. Good. I was just telling your mother we need to be realistic about the costs ahead. I looked at him, at his expensive watch, his new car keys on the table, his nice tailored shirt. Something inside me that I had been holding together for 2 years broke open. Where's the life insurance money? I asked. The room went completely quiet. Lena, my mother started. Where is it, Daniel? Dad had a big policy. It was paid out after he died. I know it was. So where did it go? Because we cannot pay for cancer treatments, but you are wearing a watch worth more than our old house. Daniel's face changed several times very fast. Then he stood up slowly, buttoned his jacket, picked up his keys. Your daughter is upset, he said to my mother in a soft, careful voice. Understandably. This is a very hard time for everyone. He looked at me one last time. This is not the right time or place for this, he said quietly. I am asking you to think about what you are doing to your mother right now. And he left. My mother looked at me with tears on her face. Daniel's team was happy to help. Almost too relaxed. I let them stay relaxed. In week 2, I started asking for the older records. The original company papers from the early years. Insurance records from the time right after my father died. Account numbers from accounts that had been closed long ago. The helpfulness slowed down. Papers were suddenly being found. Requests were being checked by lawyers. Replies that used to come in hours now took days. I sent each request again in writing with clear deadlines. The buyer's lawyers started joining my follow-up emails. Daniel began coming to morning meetings looking like as careful as they think. Please, she whispered. He is all we have left. I sat down beside her and held her and said nothing. But that night I made myself a promise I never broke. I was going to do this the right way. Not angry. Not rushed. Not in a way he could laugh off or walk away from. I was going to be patient. I was going to be careful. And when the time finally came, there would not be one single thing he could argue against. My mother died 14 months later. Fast and painful, the way cancer sometimes is. She never stopped believing that my father had somehow failed to take care of her. That is the thing I could never forgive Daniel for. Not the money. Not the company. Not the house we lost. The fact that my mother died believing the wrong man had let her down. She deserved to know the truth. She never did. That was on him. I went back to university after the funeral and finished my degree. Top of my class. I got a job at a company that finds financial fraud. I was good at it. Very good. Not just because I learned the right skills, but because I understood better than most people what it feels like to be on the other side. To be the person who trusts, who signs things without knowing what they mean, who is too sad and broken to look closely at what is being taken. People lie all the time. Faces lie. Words lie. Feelings can be faked. But money always tells the truth. Every transfer leaves a mark. Every account touches something else. Every dishonest move goes through a system that records it somewhere. You just need the patience to keep looking until you find the right thread to pull. I had spent years learning how to be patient. During the day, I worked on cases involving other people. Company fraud. Stolen money. False records. I was careful and professional, and my bosses trusted me fully. At night, I worked on Daniel. I never used work equipment or crossed any professional lines. Just my own time. My own money. My own slowly growing file of papers, records, and connections. For years of quiet, careful building. He was smart. He had hidden things well. But nobody who steals from a sad widow while the whole world thinks he is a good man is ever. That kind of pride always leaves something behind. Daniel had done very well for himself over those years. The construction company my father built was now twice as big under Daniel's name. New logo. New offices. Big new contracts. He gave speeches at business events about working hard and doing things the right way. He gave money to local charities. His picture appeared in the newspaper. His daughter posted holiday photos online with comments like, "So blessed and grateful for this family." Once I found an interview he gave to a local business magazine. The journalist asked how he became successful. "I learned everything from my late brother-in-law," he said. Robert Vega was the most honest man I ever knew in this business. I try to honor his memory every single day. I printed that page and put it carefully in my file. The week before I found what I had been looking for, an old friend of my mother called me. We hadn't talked in 2 years. She said she had been going through some boxes and found a letter my mother had written, but never sent to anyone. She asked if she could read it to me over the phone. I said yes. It was written near the end, when my mother was very ill. She wrote that she was sorry for not believing me that night. That in her last few months, she had started to think maybe I had been right. That she wished she had been stronger. That she was proud of me no matter what happened. She never sent it. I sat in my car outside my apartment for a very long time after that phone call. Then I went upstairs and worked until 4 in the morning. The phone call I had been waiting for came on a Wednesday afternoon. My company was asked to do a financial review. A large property developer wanted to buy Daniel's company. A deal that big needed a full independent check of all the finances. I read the details 4 times. Then I walked to my manager's office and told her I had experience reviewing construction company finances and would like to be on the team for this one. She gave me the job that same afternoon. I went to the bathroom, locked the door, and stood there without moving for 2 full minutes. 8 years. 8 years of studying, building, and waiting. And now the door had opened on its own. 2 weeks before the review started, Daniel gave the main speech at the Regional Business Awards. 600 people. Formal dress. Champagne. The biggest names in the industry all in one room. I bought a ticket. I wore a dark green dress and sat near the front. Daniel walked on stage to a long round of applause. He spoke for 20 minutes about doing things with honesty, about respecting the people who helped shape you, about building something that lasts. My brother-in-law Robert Vega gave me my foundation, he said. His voice broke slightly on my father's name. Not a single day goes by that I don't carry the values he lived by. The room was touched. People around me wiped their eyes. I sat completely still and clapped along with everyone else. Because the review started in 11 days. And everything he had just said in that beautiful room was about to become the most costly speech anyone in that industry had ever given. On the first morning of the review, I arrived 30 minutes early. I set up my files, put every paper in order, made coffee, When Daniel walked in and saw me sitting at the head of that table, he stopped completely. The whole room felt it. His lawyer touched his arm. Daniel pulled himself together, walked to his seat, tried to smile. "Lena," he said carefully, "this is a surprise." "Mr. Alvarez," I said, "thank you for coming in on time. We have a lot to get through." His lawyer leaned in and whispered something. Daniel nodded slowly and sat down. "I didn't know you worked in this field," he said. "5 years now," I replied, opening my folder without looking up. "Shall we start?" That first week I kept everything completely normal. Standard requests. Routine steps. Nothing unusual. He hadn't slept. I found it on a Thursday morning at 7 a.m. A report from 8 years ago. A transfer that had been added up wrong by a very tiny amount. Less than 1% of the original insurance money. But it was there. One thin thread connecting directly back to my father's life insurance account. He had moved the big amounts very carefully through layers of accounts and companies. Patient and quiet. But this one tiny trail had been left behind. I sat very still for a long time. My coworker James looked over from his desk. "You okay?" "Yes," I said quietly. "James, can you come look at something?" He came over and read the paper slowly. "Is that?" "Yes." "How far back does this go?" "All the way back," I said. James sat down slowly. "Lena, are you personally connected to this company?" I looked at him. "It was my father's company," I said. "Before my uncle took it." James was quiet for a moment. Then he stood up. "I'll get the senior partner," he said. I sent the formal letter that same afternoon. Clear, professional language. Not one extra word. Copies went to the buyer's lawyers, my company's senior partners, and the financial authorities. The letter asked simple questions about where certain money had come from. Simple questions. With no simple answers. Everything changed the moment that letter arrived. The buyer's lawyers stopped being friendly and started being very serious. The deal to buy the company paused, then stopped completely. Banks started looking into Daniel's accounts on their own. 2 of his longtime business partners asked to meet urgently with their own lawyers. His company's worth dropped before the week ended. He called me at 11 o'clock that night. I was still at my desk. "You have no idea what you're doing," he said. His voice was tight and controlled. "I know exactly what I am doing," I replied. "I have known for 8 years. A long silence. Then, "Your mother would not have wanted this." That one hit deep. I had known he would say it. I had prepared myself for it. "My mother died believing my father had failed her," I said. "She died feeling ashamed about something that was never true. That is what you really took from her. Not just the money. Not just the company. You took away her belief in the man she loved for 26 years. Silence. "You do not get to use her memory to protect yourself," I said. "Not from me." I hung up. He called back 3 times. I turned my phone face down and kept working. The buyer pulled out of the deal 3 weeks later. Their public statement was careful and professional. But the industry is small and word travels fast. Within a month, Daniel's name was showing up in business news for all the wrong reasons. The charity work stopped. The invitations to speak at events stopped coming. People who had worked with him for years started quietly walking away. His daughter made all her social media private. The house on the hill appeared for sale online. The man who had stood on that stage talking about honesty and values 6 months earlier had gone very quiet. I filed my legal claim on a Monday morning. Not for everything. Only for what had been taken. The life insurance money my mother never received. With 8 years of interest added on. With legal penalties on top. With records so detailed and so clear that Daniel's third lawyer said the same thing the first 2 had said. "There is nothing to fight here. Sign the papers." The settlement meeting took place on a gray morning in November. Daniel walked in looking 10 years older than the man who had stood on that stage getting a standing ovation. He sat across from me and kept his eyes on the table. His lawyer did most of the talking. When the final papers were put in front of him, Daniel picked up the pen slowly. He stopped before signing. Looked up at me for the first time since he had walked in. "I did care about your family," he said quietly. "I want you to know that." I looked back at him for a moment. Then you should have acted like it, I said.
He signed.
The settlement was more than I had expected. Fear does something to people in those moments. It makes them give more than they planned to. I sat in my car, afterward holding the folder in both hands. I thought about my father's notebook. All those names. All those birthdays in his careful writing. I thought about my mother at the kitchen table at midnight, whispering that she didn't understand where everything went. I thought about her signing papers she didn't understand while her whole world was falling apart. I sat there for a while. Then I started the car. I had work to do. I reopened my father's company 4 months later. Under his original name, his original logo, his original mission statement, which I found written on an old piece of paper inside the locked metal box with all the other papers my mother had kept. I had it framed and hung on the wall of the main office. I found 2 of his original workers who were still in the industry. They came in one morning for coffee. One of them walked slowly around the office. He stopped in front of the framed mission statement and stood there reading it. He wrote that himself, the man said. I was there the day he did it. I know, I said. The man looked at me. He would be so proud of you, he said. I nodded and looked away because it was my first day, and I was not going to cry. The first year was hard. There were weeks when I wondered if I was being too emotional instead of smart. But we kept going. One honest job at a time. By the end of year 1, we were making money. By year 2, Daniel's company had asked to restructure its debts. By year 3, his offices were empty, and his name was gone from the building. Just a blank wall where the sign used to be. I saw Daniel one more time after the settlement. Outside a government building one gray afternoon. He was alone, waiting, looking at his phone. He looked up when he saw me coming toward him. We both slowed down. I stopped when I reached him. He looked older, quieter, smaller than I remembered. How is the company going? He asked. Really well, I said. He nodded slowly. Then he said something I did not expect. Your father would have done exactly what you did, he said quietly. Build it back. He never let anything stay broken. I looked at him. No, I said. He never did. I walked away. That was the last time we spoke. People sometimes ask me if I feel sorry for him now. I always think about it honestly before I answer. Then I think about my mother signing papers she didn't understand while she was drowning in grief. I think about her lying in a hospital bed worrying that she was a financial problem for the people she loved. I think about her dying still believing that the man who had truly let her down was the one who loved her the most. And no, I don't feel sorry for him. A young coworker asked me once how I stayed patient for 8 years. Didn't you just want to yell at him? Face him? Make him admit it? Every single day, I told her honestly. So, how did you stop yourself? I thought about it before answering. I kept thinking about my mother at that kitchen table at midnight, I said, whispering that she didn't understand where everything went. She deserved more than a phone call he could laugh off. More than a fight he could just walk away from. She deserved the whole thing done properly and completely. My coworker was quiet. Did it feel the way you thought it would? She asked. When it was finally done? No, I said honestly. It felt quieter. But it felt right. Getting back at someone doesn't have to be loud to be real. The loudest thing I ever did was walk into that awards dinner and sit in the front rows while Daniel gave his speech about honesty and the people who shaped him. No one in that room knew what was. Starting on Monday, that silence was more powerful than anything I could have screamed at him. Being patient is not weakness. It is the strongest and hardest thing there is. My father's company has 12 workers now. Every single one of them learns who Robert Vega was in their first week. I don't tell them the whole story, just the part that matters. A man built something honest, from nothing, one job at a time, with complete integrity. That is what we are doing here. That is what this company was built on. And that is the standard it will keep. My father used to say something I didn't really understand when I was young. The truth doesn't need your help. It just needs your patience. I understand it now. I didn't destroy Daniel Alvarez. I just stopped protecting him from the truth. And then I waited. That was enough. The last thing I want to say is this. If you are young and someone has hurt you and you don't yet have the tools to do anything about it, study, learn, write everything down. Be patient. The people who harm you are counting on your pain, making you weak. Your age making you seem unimportant. Your love for them keeping you quiet. They are counting on you never learning how to hold them responsible. Prove them wrong. Not loudly. Quietly. Carefully. Completely. The way my father built his company. One honest thing at a time. His notebook is still on my desk. All those names. All those birthdays in his careful handwriting. On hard days I open it and read a few pages. It reminds me what all of this was always about. Not the money. Not the company. Not even justice, as good as that felt. Just making sure the right name is on the door. His name. Exactly where it always belonged.